right, welcome back in for another episode of the Ball Boys podcast, episode 35. KD, Trey, Easy Money Sniper, episode 35, talking about
Shout out Fortnite OG map.
facts dropped yesterday when you guys are seeing this. What do you think me and Nolan did all day Friday? Because we're recording this Thursday night, as always. A lot has happened in the NBA, man. It feels like an episode a week is like the perfect amount because we have so much to talk about. And I'm kind of wondering if it's just because it's early, so there's like a billion overreactions that we could jump into. But we had our first blockbuster trade, and it featured your Sixers, man. For anybody that doesn't know, new to the pod, your boy is not a Sixers fan despite being an Eagles fan. So please, when I give my thoughts on this trade, do not call me biased. Do not call me a homer, because I think the Sixers won this deal, and I don't think it's close. I do not think it's particularly close. I think there's a world where the deal evens out, and that world would feature the Clippers winning the NBA championship, and that's it. But I want to talk about the Sixers first, man, because we were talking about a potential Harden deal last week's pod. And we were saying, wow, the Sixers are playing really good. Tyrese Maxey's playing at an all-star level. We would rather, for this team's sake, you for your fandom, me for just the love of the game, them to pull the trigger on a trade or Harden to be brought back. Because the Sixers are close enough to the Bucks for sure, and a little farther away from Boston at this point in time, but close enough that it's still competitive. That they need at least to have more hoopers out there, whether it's James Harden or some role players. And in the deal, you send James Harden, PJ Tucker, and some guy that I've never heard of to the Clippers. And the Clippers rerouted the guy that I never heard of to the Kings, actually. And in return, you get Rocco back, trust the process. Marcus Morris, Nick Batum, a 2028 unprotected pick from the Clippers, a 2029 pick swap, and a 2026 like heavily protected pick. So that pick's kind of like it's in there, and it sounds nice to say we got 2 first-round picks, but in reality, the 2028 first-round pick unprotected, so juicy. The 2029 swap, so juicy. For anybody wondering why, the year is currently 2023. That is 5 years from now. Kawhi Leonard is what, 32, 33? Already missed his time. Paul George, a year older than Kawhi, already missed his time. Russell Westbrook, come on now. James Harden switches teams every 2 years. He probably won't even be a Clipper by then. They have none of their draft picks. The rest of them are in OKC from that Paul George deal. That team is going to stank, man. They are going to be so bad. And we'll talk about the Clippers and why I don't think it's like the worst trade in the world for them in a moment. But I think Philly made out really well with the picks there. And I also think Philly getting expiring contracts and added draft capital is huge for them for the trade deadline. Because now you can make moves a little bit more freely without worrying that you've submerged your future the way that the Clippers just did. And I think this all stems from Tyrese Maxey. And the fact that in the first week, he won Eastern Conference Player of the Week, averaging over 30 points per game, looking like an all-star, great assist to turnover ratio, the best true shooting of any player in the NBA for the first week of the season. He came out and he balled. And Daryl Morey said, all right, bet, seen enough, ready to move off of James Harden and give the keys to the offense to Tyrese Maxey. And you know that had to run through Embiid, and he co-signed it. So as a Sixers fan, walk me through your thoughts when you saw the trade.
Yeah, well, first things first, that shit popped off at like 3 a.m. And I don't know if you heard the story, but apparently Woj was flying from Newark to LAX, and he got a text, at whatever, midnight.
Mm-hmm.
It was a red eye, and he got a text, and he's like, whoever sent him the text was like, don't get on that plane. So Woj did not get on that plane. Me personally, I'd be like, is this going to blow up? Like, what's happening? But so he stayed in the airport, waited till the James Harden news, and was there, and then he didn't get on the plane and obviously left the next morning, which is pretty wild. Like, as a journalist, like that's like pretty legit.
Dedication.
Exactly, like all night, bro. That's a
Shams
big
was
thing.
sleeping.
Yeah. He was up with what's her face.
I didn't want to spread that rumor, but hey, I don't blame you.
hey, makes you think.
Dogs will be
Make
dogs.
make makes you wonder, bro. But, no, bro. So the actual trade, I mean, I loved it. For me, James Harden, there wasn't the biggest value, like the way that whole situation was going, it was getting ugly. And if you're a Sixers fan like myself, like you said, expiring contracts, you got some depth, and what I love the most about it too is like you mentioned, bro, like next year and this trade deadline, we could move a lot of these pieces to really build for the future. And I think the biggest thing is Embiid's probably staying. Before this trade, me personally, I was like, and this is probably his last year because there's no way that he is going to stay. This whole organization is just a disaster. And I think, the way this team is playing with Nick Nurse too, like they look pretty good.
Yeah,
And
they're locked
I
in
think,
defensively.
yeah, and I think if you're a Sixers fan, like you're like, wow, okay,
You
like we actually got something going, maybe,
you know how this story ends, right?
Yeah.
It would only be right for this to be how the story ends. I mean, it would be tragic for Clippers fans. But the James Harden thing, going all in on Harden, they are under the most pressure to win this season
And the
because
West is tough, bro. It's
the
like,
West is tough. Well, first off, we can talk about the trade in a second, but I just really want to talk about the future and why this trade was just unbelievably asinine for the Clippers' future. This offseason, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, James Harden, Russell Westbrook are all expiring deals. You have the opportunity to lose every single one of them. And tell me that the most Clippers scenario isn't after this year, Russ stays, Harden goes to Houston, Paul George goes to Philly because they have the money now, and they're gonna have the expiring deals, and Kawhi retires. Tell me that is not the most Clipper ending to all of this after a first round playoff exit.
So I have a funny story. Years back, it was like after my freshman year of college, and like me and my boys want to do like a out of state trip, and one of my friends who went to UCLA for school, and it was like in May, and at the time the Clippers, they had like Griffin and Chris Paul, like that was like
Oh,
the
the Lob
heyday,
City action.
Lob City, and we were like, yo, we're gonna be there for the playoffs. Like, we're definitely like we should go to a game, right? And we were so pumped to go. Like, it was like insane. And that was the series against, I think it was the Rockets. They're up 3-1, and they blew it. And after that point, I have such a disdain for that organization because of like just how shit that franchise is run, especially being in LA. Like, you have all these resources and you still can't
They
finish with them.
And now they're building this $1 billion stadium that
Mhm.
they'll probably pay Harden a boatload of money to stay if Kawhi and Paul
You need a
George
strip club in
leave.
that stadium, bro.
Yeah, well, I saw all the memes. LA strippers like celebrating now, and first night. Did you see the pictures? First
Uh,
night Harden got there, Kawhi was
Kawhi, yeah,
Kawhi was. I was like, damn, bro, already
yeah.
sucked in that lifestyle.
I will say the 20 which is the so 2027 the pick that's unprotected. Which one is it? 28?
2028.
Okay, so I believe the 2029 pick is protected 1 through 3. I'm
It's a
pretty sure.
I don't know. I know it's a swap,
Yeah, so I
so it's
think
not like you don't get.
it's protected to top 3, I believe.
Well, it might be there, man. It might be there.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Um,
That would suck. But like you said, bro, like having that draft capital, and even not even have to keep that, bro. Like that's such a nice resource to
well,
have.
right. So I
You
at the
know?
deadline for Philly. I mean, OG Anunoby, Zach Levine. Those are
Uh,
guys that feel like
Seven.
they're really going to be there. I heard Bill Simmons on his podcast. He mentioned Carl Anthony Towns. I hate that fit, man.
Oh, no,
I
please.
hate it, but he threw it out there.
He
Um,
just wants us to lose, bro.
I you know a little Jimmy Butler reunion. We're going to talk about the Heat later,
Hey,
man, but they look
cooked.
bad.
Oh,
Um,
he did.
and take away the Jimmy Butler thing, the OG Anunoby one makes just so much sense because Daryl Morey wants to play for cap space this offseason. He said it. OG Anunoby's on an expiring deal. Um, so you got that factor going in. So in the offseason, you have the cap space, but you also raise your ceiling for this year. Nick Nurse, he's got history with OG Anunoby, was his coach for a long time. Anunoby fits in perfectly with this team because he doesn't need the ball in his hand to be an effective player. Whereas
Super
like Zach
Bowl.
Levine's kind of taking touches from Tyrese Maxey that maybe you don't want him to take. You still have Tobias there. The Sixers are in a really, really good spot. And, you know, Daryl Morey did it again, man. I'll say that. After all the flack that he got, he flipped Ben Simmons into an all-star, in James Harden.
Yeah.
But he flipped Ben Simmons for the best package you could.
No,
And then
like
he just went and flipped James Harden.
it's
He
just
got a team that was only bidding against themselves to pay up.
No, I just laugh because like that Ben Simmons saga was just like it was ridiculous. The amount of stuff I was looking at and reading, like that whole year and a
Yeah.
half was horrendous.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to touch on the Clippers now because I don't want to sound like we're overly hating on them. But here's the thing, man. If they don't win the title this year and they don't get this core to come back, this was a major bag fumble. And I'm not sure this is a top 4 team in the West,
No,
let alone a title team. For starters, they are nowhere close to Denver. Let's just put it like
who's
right.
coming?
Right. Well, my point being, just like they're not there with Denver right now. That's the matter of the fact. You can't debate me with Denver. We could start talking at 2, but a healthy Suns team, I'm taking that over the Clippers right now. Golden State, they have looked so good. Just flipping Jordan Poole for Chris Paul has made them look like they're back to the team that won the title. The Clippers just lost to the Lakers last night, and I get it. I get that the Clippers didn't have Harden out there, and I get that the Clippers were on a back-to-back. But the Lakers were also without Torian Prince, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, and Gabe Vincent, which is 4 of their top 9 guys. And the Lakers won, and LeBron looks really good. And we're not really talking about the Lakers. And you got Luka and the Mavs who are 4-0 right now. The West is loaded. And the thing with the Clippers that worries me is there's only one basketball. Kawhi needs it. Paul George needs it. James Harden needs it to be effective. Russell Westbrook certainly needs it to be effective. You watched how the Lakers guarded him when he wasn't having the ball. They didn't. They just let him stand in the corner and let him shoot. And any team that's playing the Clippers will live with Russell Westbrook taking the shot at the end of the possession with Harden, Paul George, and Kawhi on the court. And Russell Westbrook's going to move to the bench, and now you're going to lose the value that he had been giving you. How bought in is James Harden going to be, and how long is he going to be bought in? Maybe he'll be bought in early, but how long does that last? There's going to be nights where this team looks really, really good. But it's a team full of playoff chokers besides Kawhi, a team full of guys who don't have the best injury history, and a team full of guys who I'm not sure can play together. This feels like a worse version of the Nets. Because at least KD and Kyrie could play off the ball and had experience doing it. Again, there's going to be nights where it looks really good. And maybe those nights you can string them together in the playoffs and James Harden plays out of his mind and is bought in defensively and is willing to just be an orchestrator for Kawhi and Paul George. And the fairy tale ends with the Clippers winning the title, and it was all worth it. But I just don't see it going that way, man. Even if the Clippers make it to the finals, they're not beating Boston. They're not matching up with Milwaukee. And if Philly gets there at that point, it means they made a move. And they're not matching up with them either. It's just you went all in, you played every card you got, and it still feels like you went all in on a pair of twos. Okay, maybe twos is ridiculous, but like you went in on
Seven.
a pair of tens or something, whereas like somebody could easily have a straight.
A joker.
Yeah, a joker in their deck for sure. I just again, I'm not a Philly fan, but I I'd be worried if I was a Clippers fan, and they have the most pressure on them of any team in the NBA, and we've seen what happens to this team under pressure.
Good luck, man. And I think the biggest thing people don't realize is when you have 3 stars, that is super tough to get accustomed, especially
And
when you're off season.
Kawhi's not the player he once was, by the way. Paul George is the best player on that team at this point.
Facts. And imagine having 4 players, ball dominant players, getting accustomed middle of the season. One of them being James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Like
Yeah,
that
how'd that
was
go
a
the last time they played
recipe.
together?
That
Oh yeah,
is
they both demanded trades out of Houston.
that I do not see why the Clippers were so gung ho on trying to trade for James. I know he wanted to go to LA. Like I totally get that. But like if you're a Clippers fan, like what is your end game? You know, like it's like you said, they have 1 year. If they want to sell tickets, they want to be better than the Lakers. I get it, okay, but like you're not gonna. I cannot see a universe where they're
James
gonna
Harden
win.
is good enough to get them regular season wins,
Mhm.
and when Paul George and Kawhi inevitably miss time, he will be there to keep them afloat. But in the playoffs, man, I just don't see them getting past the second round.
Yeah, second round exit could be
And depending on where they get matched up with and who it is, I don't know if they get out of the first. Um,
possible in the West as well.
yeah, it's just the West is loaded, and we'll see. Uh, I want to talk about the in-season tournament, man. And the funniest scenario of this is that the Clippers win the in-season tournament and get bounced in the first round too.
How about those
Um,
courts though?
the courts look fire. Here's what I'll say about the in-season tournament. I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know where it's going to matter at the end of the day. But the NBA has made me at least care about it for this year, which is, hey, man, that's the goal, right? You bring in an in season tournament because before this season, we know the talk of NBA fans. It was the NBA season doesn't start until Christmas. Well, now you got this tournament early in the year that ends before Christmas. So it's like we have this, and I'm gonna be watching these games, and I believe this happens in European soccer, and it works pretty well over there. There's the $500,000 per player cash prize for the winning team. Does that matter to a guy like LeBron? No. Does it matter to a guy like Tyrese Maxey who makes $3 million a year? Yeah, man. Like that's a sixth of his contract. Like the average person makes what, 50, $60,000 a year? That's like the median income. If I offer that person $10,000 for a week's worth of work, you think they'd show up? Probably, man. So just put it in that perspective. Take it to your dollars. What is a sixth of what you make on the year? It's going to matter to those younger NBA players. So, and I think the competitiveness of pro athletes, they're going to ball out. They're going to try. Uh, the question that I have that I want to pose to you, and I posed it earlier on my socials, is what does this tournament have in terms of value of a player's career? And I'm not talking about KD, Curry, LeBron. Theirs is kind of already written in stone. But in 10, 15 years, when we're talking about Anthony Edwards and Shea, let's say Ant won 2 titles and Shea won one, but Shea's got 3 in season tournament wins. What does that stack up as? Is that just an equivalent of an all star appearance, all NBA team? Like, where does it stack up? And I don't know if we have an answer for it. And I think that the truth of the matter is it depends who wins the first one. If we go through this fucking in season tournament and we come out on the other end and it was a fun time, but the Indiana Pacers one, this is going to be viewed as nothing but a summer league tournament 2.0. Well, it's just the truth. That's what it's going to be
No,
viewed
you're
as.
right.
But if we leave this in-season tournament in the finals was a one-game finals between the Nuggets and Boston, we're going to leave this like, okay, this is something. I don't know what it is, but you got to be good to win it. That's what I do know. So you will see there. Apparently, they're going to have an all NBA Cup team as well. When everybody's seeing this actually Friday, so for us today, tomorrow, but for everybody else, yesterday was the first set of the in-season games, the group stages. So I'm excited for that. We'll get to see the courts. The NBA in-season tournament play, it takes place every Tuesday and Friday. So whatever games are on those days. Again, man, listen, Tuesdays and Fridays is smart. No football on. It's going to bring me to watch the games. Did you have any thoughts on this tournament? Some of my friends think it's just a waste of time, complete garbage.
Yeah,
I'm kind of more optimistic on it.
yeah, no, I'm excited. I think it'll lead to good entertainment, good viewingship. And for me, I'm a soccer guy. So I compare it to Premier League stuff like that. Like they do the same thing, and that's how the NBA got it. And I think it's a good thing because when you look at the NBA, bro, like you're just like sleepwalking. Even Christmas time, bro. Even January, you're still like,
These games count towards the regular season too, so
exactly.
you
So
they can't sleepwalk through the tournament as if it means nothing.
yeah, so I think it'll be awesome for the teams, the players, the fans. Like it'll be great. However, I think for career wise, I don't think it's gonna mean too much. Like you're not gonna be like, oh, he won 3 in season tournaments and he won
I
0.
I do think it'll be like kind of a tiebreaker thing. I think it'll
If they're
matter.
tied,
I
yeah,
think
but
it'll matter more than all-star selections.
no,
Dude,
no,
everybody makes the all-star team.
yeah, you got
Dude,
no.
Mo Williams has an all-star appearance on his resume.
Yeah,
And
but
like shout out
also,
Mo Williams, but come
but
on now.
nah, for me, because the in season, because you don't know how like the
Like
teams are gonna
Laurie
play.
Markkinen made the all-star team last year.
He had a good season last year.
Yeah, I know, but come on now.
So
Like
for me, okay, so in season tournament for me is like, say, like you said, the Pacers win, or just maybe even the Warriors. There could be games where Curry, takes the games off and somebody else takes out, like Wiggins. So you're saying because they win the tournament, Curry gets the credit that he's an in-season tournament win when Wiggins did like the legwork. So I think because of that, I
well,
don't
I just
think
think it matters like
it's gonna hold.
I
It's not gonna hold weight when you compare like two guys
I think context is everything for
there.
everything. Um I at the end of the day, it is just a stat. It won't be anything compared to NBA finals or all NBA teams, but I think it'll be at that all-star-esque level. Like I think it'll be a cool little yeah, he was good in the middle of the season, just like an all-star. He was good in the middle of the season. Um but we'll see where it all shakes out.
And I am when is it?
It starts tomorrow, ends early December. Let's throw
Mhm.
predictions. So who do you think wins the first ever in season tournament? Because we're doing
Mm,
this before the group stages even started.
I hate saying this, but I think it's the Lakers.
I promise you it ain't. I promise you.
I'm telling you, it's gonna be
So the
LeBron's gonna go he's gonna try so hard to win this.
I don't think so. I
I
will say though, the ending of
his
it being in
ego,
Vegas, where he wants to have a franchise, may matter
his
something.
his ego will not, I'm telling you, his ego will not let him lose this thing.
So the last two games that your team plays in the in-season tournament don't count towards regular season. So
Mhm.
the semifinals and the finals in Vegas don't count. That is why I don't think a veteran-led team will win it. I don't think the Clippers will win it. I don't think the Warriors will win it. I don't think the Lakers will win it because I don't think that they want those extra games on them. And I also don't think that the money matters for LeBron. Like 500K doesn't matter for him. Like as crazy as that is to say, that shit just doesn't matter. He's a
Talk to me.
billionaire. Um, I think a team who hasn't won a title recently as well may want to win it more. So Boston, Philly, um, you know, Phoenix, Miami, but Dallas, a team like that, where this is something, a young team like OKC, I can see them going very hard trying. Um, but at the end of the day, I do think the NBA wants it to be taken seriously. And I think that they're pushing for guys to play in these games. I'm going to go Boston wins it, man. I think that they haven't.
Lakers, yeah.
I don't think the Lakers make it to like the finals. I think Boston ends up playing
I'm
like.
telling you,
I
bro.
think it's Boston like Kings in the finals. I think it's two young teams, and Boston's still a younger team that haven't won anything, but this would be really nice for them. There's players on the team that the money would be nice for. I think we're gonna maybe the Cavs could see them compete in the Knicks. I just don't think we're gonna see Milwaukee, Miami, the Lakers, Warriors give a fuck about this thing at the end. I wouldn't be shocked if the Nuggets won it either. But we'll see. I do want to talk about the Celtics and the Bucks though, because in terms of their season, when we did our predictions, I said that I thought the Bucks would figure things out earlier, and then the Celtics would come around later. It is looking like the Celtics have come around, and the Bucks are figuring things out.
Deer
Which,
in the headlights.
in retrospect, new head coach, a star player who's going to have a big role on a team, having to figure that out. In retrospect, hindsight, I could see where my logic was wrong there versus Porzingis, kind of a plug and play guy for Boston. Drew Holiday, he's a defensive effort guy. He was able just to slide right in. For Boston, man, they are clear cut the best team in the East right now. It's just not even close. I told you guys, Jason Tatum for MVP. I get it. They're 4-0, and that's all it is. They're 4-0 against the spread for us bettors out there. So, good teams win, great teams cover.
They dropped like 140, 50 points last
Yeah,
night.
155. So we knew we were going to see games like that from this team. So many weapons. Like when they're on, they're on. With Boston, obviously they're not going to keep pace of 4-0, but they have a plus 20 point differential right now. They are just clear cut playing as the best team in the NBA. I still think Denver has looked like the best team in the NBA, but Boston statistically is the best team in the NBA. Do you think Boston just kind of keeps this rolling and is the one seed throughout the season? Or do you think they go through ebbs and flows and we're just seeing a high right now?
Hey man, I said Boston would win, unfortunately, and they are freaking good, bro. Bro, you add Drew Holiday to that team with Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, and Tatum. You still have the other guys like a
Derek
decent
White, Al Horford, Hauser,
Pritchard's there.
Pritchard.
Like they have a squad, bro, and I think they have the right mindset going into this year after last year's brutal performance against the Heat. And I think for me too is Jaylen Brown. He's locked in. Last year he was kind of in limbo. He's going to Atlanta. Is he leaving? He's locked in. He's a Celtic for the next 4 or 5 years. And I think that plays a huge factor. And he gets the love from the team. They share upon him and Tatum. This is their team, and I think because of that, it's playing a huge dividend. And I mean, they look great. They're playing great, and yeah, it's early on, but I think it's going to continue, man. I think this could
Yeah.
be a really, really special team, like even historic, possibly.
Yeah, I don't see them like breaking regular season win records. I just think there's so much talent in the NBA. But they could, 60 wins. In the 60 win club, I think that's certainly a real possibility for them. And for Milwaukee, man, Dame looked pretty good that first game versus Philly,
Of
and
course.
he closed it out. But since then, man, he's had some duds. He's had 2 single digit scoring games, I believe. Just hasn't been Dame time. They have not figured out the offense, new head coach. It's still so early in the season, and they have so much talent. But if you had to give a scale of 1 to 10, your concern level for Milwaukee, where would you be?
I'm like a 4. I mentioned this earlier. Like when you have a new player, especially Dame caliber, and you have a guy like Giannis, they're super, super different on the player spectrum. So it's going to take a while to get adjusted to their
Yeah.
gameplay, how they play. So give it time if you're Milwaukee. Don't you're relax. You got Giannis and Dame, like it'll be all right.
Uh-huh.
I will say though, if it gets to like Thanksgiving and it's still looking a little sus or shaky, like then I would
Here's what I'll say.
be
The
worried.
Heatles started, what was it, 16 and 15? I
Mhm.
mean, when they first, when you have two guys who are so used to being the focal point of the offense come together, sometimes it's hard, man.
Yeah.
And it feels like Dame has taken more of a back seat than he should in some of these games. And in that first interview with Chris Haynes, Giannis said this is Dame's team. It don't fucking look like it. Like it looks like it's still Giannis's team, and like that's cool, but like the offense needs to be Dame's, and the offense just hasn't been. It's some of the plays it feels like he's kind of pedestrian, a little bystander dish. New rookie head coach. I My concern level for them being a good team come playoff time is like a 1. Like unless there's injury, I have no doubt they'll figure it out. But my concern for this team against Boston, yeah, man, that's probably like a 4 or 5, man. Like it's still so early, but it just doesn't feel like something that's gonna be fixed overnight for Milwaukee.
Mhm.
It feels like they're gonna be hovering around the 4 or 5 seed as we get into December. Whereas I think Boston's going to build a big enough lead that they'll be the 1 seed going in the playoffs. And now the playoffs run through Boston. And
Mhm.
that's my concern because you're already playing an uber talented team. They're going to go in with more confidence and have home court probably. Um, so we'll see how that shakes out. Another 4-0 team.
Luka.
Dude, this has to be my biggest surprise. And not Luca, but the Mavericks being 4-0. Kyrie has missed 2 games. And we said that the Mavericks would get some regular season wins. Um, they have the second most points per game in NBA, and it's behind Boston, who just put up 155 in a game. And we've only seen 4 games, so like the stats pretty skewed. But they have the best plus minus differential in the West, aside from the Clippers. Believe that or not. But the Mavericks are good, man, and they have guys who know their roles. And I think that helps really a lot in the regular season. Luka's averaging 34, 10, and 10 to start the year. So anytime you sim through 2K and you see his numbers and you're like, that's not fucking realistic. It is this year, man. But again, they got guys that know their role. Luka, Kyrie, Grant Williams has been a huge pickup for them. He's averaging 15 points per game. Tim Hardaway's averaging 20. The offense is there. Derek Lively's there. As good as this team is, though, when real intense basketball starts with real defense and they got to guard up, I just don't see it. Luka MVP, maybe if they can just outscore you a ton in the regular season and get to be a top 3 seed and he's putting up those numbers, it'll be hard not to give it to them. But I just don't see this team as a title contender despite the 4-0 start. You?
Yeah, no, I mean you're kind of on point. With me, it's just they're always been high offensive power. Their defense not so much, and it's early on this season. You're gonna have a lot of blowouts, and teams gonna adjust it and stuff. But I will say, I think it was last Friday. I forget who the Mavericks were playing, but Luca popped off, bro, and that last shot he had, it was like the one-handed, like the
So
shot clock.
Luca's become unguardable.
It's
And
like it's insane, bro. I was like, it's like he's like in like a backyard playground, and just it's like clockwork to him.
well, so here's the truth of it, and this will be the case for most teams that they face. Obviously, like a team like Boston who has a Drew Holiday, that can be like an exception to what I'm about to say. But either the guy you're having guard Luca is too slow because he's too big, or the guy that you're having guard Luca isn't strong enough. And Luca will hunt the mismatch. He'll find it. He'll get to his spot. He's hitting the step back three this year at a 50% clip right now to start the season. He has no problem getting to the paint. He's a great foul grifter. Offensively, he's unstoppable because he also knows how to pass the ball and make the right play. So you can't double him because he'll find the open guy, and the Mavs have surrounded him with shooters. Their offense is top tier. They're 4-0 and Kyrie's missed twice. But defensively, I worry about them, obviously. But yeah, Luka's right now playing like the best offensive player in basketball through the first week and a half of the NBA season. And that's where we're at here. I want to close this out by talking about some teams that are struggling. The Miami Heat and the Memphis Grizzlies. They have been bad. The Grizzlies are 0-5, last in the West. The Heat are 1-4, last in the East. I'm going to let you talk about one of these teams at length. Which one are you more concerned about?
So going into the season, we both knew that the Grizzlies, they, suspension wise, they got new players coming in. They got a lot of moving pieces. So I did think, it would be a slow start. Not this slow, but slow. However, the Miami Heat starting this bad this early is not good whatsoever. I know in past years, they've been, trucking along, barely making playoffs, this and that. But I think this year's it just feels different for that team and culture. I think their heads maybe got too big, too cocky. They lost some guys, and I just think that you Jimmy Butler, he did that whole emo look. Like it just, I think this team just wasn't prepared mentally for the season to be here this quick, and I think they're paying dividends because of it. And for me, I'm like, do I think that they can still do stuff in the East? Yes, but I don't know, bro. I think if you're a Heat fan, you should really like. I would put a very high warning on like, do not keep playing with fire because I think they might be in a lot of trouble soon because it doesn't look good.
Tyler Hero's been the best player on the team to start the year.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're 1-4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jimmy, we know he's not a regular season guy, but he hasn't been special. Here's the thing: the Heat, this whole offseason, thought they were getting Dame.
Mm-hmm.
They moved like they were getting Dame. They
Mm-hmm.
talked like they were getting Dame.
Yep.
And then they didn't get Dame. But they let Max Strus and they let Gabe Vincent go. And again, are those guys all-star caliber players? No. But there were two starters on your finals team that just weren't replaced. That were replaced by Drew Smith, Rite Aid checkout helper. And you can't keep getting away with it. You know what I mean? You can't keep just bringing up these guys from the G League or from the South Beach Venice courts and making them NBA guys. And the Miami Heat last year, they became very overrated because of the run that they went on. This team was in the play-in and was 4 minutes away from missing the playoffs entirely because they were not that good last year throughout the regular season, and they weren't that good of a team. The thing is, in playoff basketball, in a slowed down environment, Jimmy Butler was able to pick apart the Bucks without Giannis, and then the Bucks, what was their problem? They didn't have a guy who created his own shot. That's why they went and got Dame, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks beat Cleveland by bullying them, but the Knicks were just a worse version of the Heat when it came to the playoffs because RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, what they were in the regular season, they fell off. And I'm not trying to discredit what Miami did, but I'm just explaining why they kind of became overrated as a top tier team going into this year. And then Boston choked it away. And then when you got to the finals and you faced Denver, a real team, you got the shit kicked in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is a team that looked like and was a 7 seed, 8 seed all last regular season, who made a miraculous run, and now they come into this year with less firepower, and shocker, they look terrible. But All that said, I'm more worried about the Grizzlies. And listen, I tried to tell y'all that this team not having Tyus Jones for the stretches without John Morant was going to hurt them. And their offense stinks.
Mm-hmm.
Jaren Jackson Jr. stinks, man. He won DPOY last year, but he ain't ready for that load. Marcus Smart, not ready for that load. Desmond Bain, not ready for that number one guy role. The team misses Ja. When Ja comes back, they'll be good. The problem is
Bring back Dylan Brooks.
it's not Dylan Brooks that they're missing. They miss Steven Adams and they miss Brandon Clark. They miss having a center. But not having Ja for 25 games is going to cost this team a playoff spot. They are going to be, when Ja gets back, at best 10 and 15. And probably more realistically, 6-7 wins. And they're going to be battling. And in a loaded West, unless some injuries happen, they're not catching up to Denver. They're not catching up to the Warriors, the Suns. They're not catching up to the Lakers. At that point, they probably won't catch up to the Clippers because Harden's going to get them regular season wins. Not catching up to the Kings. So that's 6. So at best, you're going to play in. And we didn't even mention the team that's in first 4-0, the Mavericks, who are off to a great start, which it will matter. Pelicans, Thunder. I think the Grizzlies missed the playoffs this year, man. And I think that the Miami Heat might make it. So I'm going to go with the Grizzlies. We're off to a worse start. But that's all we got for you guys here today on Ball Boys episode 35. Appreciate you listening if you made it this far in the episode. It's a 1:30 a.m. for us. I know I'm a little tired. I know Nolan's a little tired. So we'll skip the pleasantries. All of our links are in the description as always. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.